Happy to be here, and hello everybody. Glad to present this work that was joint work together with Magdalene from the UK. So digital technology is often viewed as a powerful driver for gender equality, with the potential to give people across all genders access to information, resources, and opportunities. And the digital divide due to gender is thought to be decreasing in developed countries such as the UK and the US and many others. However, in the specific context of security, user security, privacy, and digital safety, we have recently observed in our own work that there's a gender gap between how men and women feel with regards to online tracking and their subsequent protective behavior. Miranda Way and colleagues have seen that people have stereotypes, that men are more engaged with SP topics, and women are thought to have poor confidence. Chris Ging and colleagues have seen that people from the LGBTQ+ community tend to reject broad digital safety advice because they simply interfere with their livelihood. In parallel, we have the United Nations advocating that it is not enough for women and girls to simply have access to technology and digital skills, but they must also become active agents of change to create a safer and equitable digital future for all. And so, in parallel to all of that, we have the communication regulator in the UK who have been saying in their own national survey that women tend to be more specifically targeted online. They are less confident and are less able to voice their opinions. This sentiment is shared with the European Institute for Gender Equality. Given this motivation and our own identification of the binary gender gap last year, we decided to focus this research on a comparison between men and women. And so we designed an online survey that we conducted via a prolific academic, where our questions were mostly open-ended. The responses from these questions were qualitatively analyzed, and these were then fed into visualizations and statistical inferences. All of that was meant to answer the following research questions, basically addressing the what, the how, and a little bit about the why. So what advice source do people use for SP protection specifically? What SP technologies and methods they engage with? What's the link between advice and practice? And a bit about why they connect with intimate and social connections for those advice and what type of advice they received. Here we already decided to focus on intimate and social connections because there are indications in literature that those are very popular provider advice and therefore quite valuable as well. But it's not yet known how they are linked with protective practice. Our sample was balanced between the two genders and evenly spread across age groups. Our sample had a higher percentage of university graduates compared to the UK population. There was a higher percentage of women participants with master's and PhD degrees compared to male participants. The male participants had a higher percentage of undergraduate degrees. In terms of computer science and IT background, the difference between the two genders was smaller in our sample compared to what we observe among those studying computer science degrees and technology workforce in the UK. There was no difference between the two genders in our sample in terms of information navigation, social and mobile digital skills. But there were slight differences in terms of operational and creative digital skills, though those were not significant. However, there was a significant difference in affinity for technology innovation. How we measured all of that is explained in the paper. And so what advice did people mention and what advice source, did people mention? So we categorized mention of family, friends, in-person contact and colleagues under intimate and social connections, mentions of general research, etc., under online content, and news, TV shows, training, etc., under other categories. What was the differences? So our women participants were 4 times more likely to report seeking advice from family, twice more likely to refer to colleagues and those they have contact with at work. There was a higher percentage of women participants saying they were not aware or didn't know of any source of advice. And family only or in combination with any other source was the most named advice source among women. Whereas the male participants were 2 to 4 times more likely to name general advice and all the others in the list among the online content category. There was a higher percentage of reporting multiple sources of advice, and general research only and in combination with another source was the most named advice source. So what protective technology or methods, a non-technological method, did people mention? So for male participants, they were more likely to report using SP Tech, so basically going up from the bottom of this chart, whereas women were more likely to report not using any SP method or technology. Here we wanted to visualize the association between SP source and practice, and basically what we want to focus on in this chart is with the area within and around the pink box for women and the blue one for men. And so here we see the links between the advice sources and technologies and methods named by women versus men, and basically they are quite diagonal and different for the two genders. In terms of predictions, we saw that there was no significant impact on gaining advice from the intimate and social connection category on whether people reported using SP Tech, whereas advice from online content were 3 times to 11 times more likely to also be mentioning use of SP Tech. People who gain advice from training were more than 9 times likely to use SP technologies. In addition, we see that an increase in the number of advice sources from 0, 1, 2, and 3 gradually increased the odds of using SP technologies. So why did people seek advice from intimate and social connections, and what advice did they receive? So here we are specifically showing the area where there was a difference and mostly mentioned by men and women. And for the full list of rationales and reasoning, it's all described in the paper, and we have example codes and references from participants as well there. So women talked about their perception of ISC skills. So perception of ISC's knowledge, general knowledge, belief that they are up to date, that they work in IT, and belief that they have IT skills. And here, mentions of IT hardly referred to security and privacy skills, and a perception about the experience, or whatever that means, of ISCs. They also referred to ISCs' qualities in terms of their trustworthiness, their ease of access, and their helpfulness. They then referred to their own assessment of their own skills, and specifically the difference was around needing help, and therefore asking for help. For our male participants, we saw the difference, and the most mentioned was connecting with ISC to evaluate options and for mutual sharing of practices, and to seek reassurance of their own practice. In terms of advice received, the topics mentioned by our women participants referred to password security, privacy settings, mainly on social network sites. For men participants, they referred to malware and scam protection and communication and network privacy. So the takeaway from this talk, the main takeaway, is that the distinct gender norms in SP access and participation that we have observed in this research leads us to questioning the equitability of SP advice and technologies that we're producing and that we're putting out there. In support of the practices that women are already engaging with, and women making 51% of the population in the UK, we recommend the need for socially supported versions of SP technologies, to think about those at the beginning itself rather than after we put individual versions of technologies out there. And more communal, informal spaces where those advice can be gained. And we are aware of colleagues already working in that direction, so more of that is needed. We need features to sustain dialogue and simple ways to support people to learn and ask for help, like having simple templates, what to ask, whom to ask, and how to ask. We need evaluation of the effectiveness of online advice for different genders. Are these actually working, and how and why not? We need those advice to be accessible, relevant, coherent across sources, and specifically to be linked to what matters to different genders and what threat models are affecting them. In terms of gender security and privacy, we hardly have any research yet, and in the opening slide, I showed the only research focusing strongly on gender within the community. Those are the only ones. And so we need researchers to work beyond the academic space and to collaborate with social enterprises, with online safety advocates, with human rights activists, etc., to figure out together how do we address gender issues with regards to protective privacy and security. And in terms of design, we need consideration of stereotypical cues that we are inadvertently including into our SP designs that might be causing gender type engagement. In terms of equity, as a community, we need critical reflection on what it means for SP technologies and advice to be gender equitable. In terms of participation, access, outcomes, opportunities, etc. We really need to have a conversation about that. And in an ideal world, we'll recommend the development of an SP equity assurance framework that basically look at anything before any SP technology or advice before it's put out there for the public. A little bit of acknowledgement here. This research was partly supported by a UK-funded project called Agency, within which we are continuing this work and working with communities. Feel free to reach out to me if you want to know more about that. And happy to take questions now. Thank you.